and welcome to the Twins Mummy and I podcast. I am mummy to 2-year-old twins Isla and Daria and baby Lara. Join us on our family adventure as I explore a range of topics on parenthood. Hello everybody and welcome to the 43rd episode of the Twins Mummy and I podcast. If you've just stumbled upon this podcast, my name is Carla and I work as a TV journalist, but now I am a stay-at-home mum to twin toddlers and a little baby. If you're interested in topics such as maternal mental health, parental well-being and what life is really like with 3 under 3, then this is the place for you. You are very welcome. You can also check out our family adventure on Instagram at twinsmummyni. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. This is the 3rd time that I am trying to record this week's podcast episode. I tried to record earlier on today, but like all things in life, there's unpredictability. My 3 children all needed me at the one time, so I had to stop the recording to be able to feed and change and soothe and entertain everybody. I came back, turned on the microphone and tried again. And I think I was sitting here for a good 45 minutes chatting away to you about this and that. And it turned out I never even hit the record button. So it's now 5:20. It's dark outside. I am absolutely exhausted. But let's give this a go one more time. I'm going to keep checking that the microphone is recording just to make sure that everything's going according to plan this time round. Let me just check. Yes, the light is still on. We are still in business. So let's give this a go. In this week's podcast episode, I wanted to have a chat with you about what life is really like with 3 under 3. And particularly with a certain focus on what it's like having another child after having twins. Now, over the past month or so, I've been thinking, what topic do I want to start the year 2026 with? And lots of you have sent me messages wanting to know what it's like having a child after you have multiples. So I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll lift the microphone and have a chat with you about what my own experience is like with 3 children under 3. And can I tell you, it's not as hard as I thought it would be. Now, everybody's experience of having children is very much unique to them. But I just wanted to be open and honest with you about what my experience is. Let's start at the very beginning. Before we had children, I remember everyone telling me how busy it would be, how tired I would be, and just how difficult it would be having twins. But no one really talked about the joy that can be found amidst all of the chaos in motherhood as well. Before the kids came along, I never really thought what life would be like. I focused so much on managing my twin pregnancy and I focused on managing my singleton pregnancy and equally the births as well. It's no secret in this podcast that I felt very afraid about getting pregnant. I felt very afraid about what pregnancy would be like and equally the birth as well. Had I even thought about what family life would be like whenever we brought our kids home from the hospital, it would have been far too overwhelming for me. But here we are with 3 children, all under the age of 3, and now is the time to explore what that really looks like in our day-to-day. As I said, lots of you have asked me what it's like having a child after multiples. So this is my honest experience of family life in our house. Can I tell you, it's nowhere near as hard as I thought it would be. And I just want to start the story there. I didn't think I could do it. If 5 years ago somebody told me I would be in the situation that I am in today, where I have 3 children, 2 of which are twin toddlers and a new baby, that I would have paused my career in order to be a stay-at-home mum to look after everybody, I would have said to yourself, not a chance would I ever be able to do that. I had no experience of children. I hadn't a clue about changing nappies, making bottles, settling toddler tantrums, entertaining toddlers, feeding babies. I had no idea what it entailed looking after young children. But here I am, all of these years later, and I'm just doing it. I think that's what it's all about. I didn't think I could do it. until I actually did. The learning is always in the doing for me. So this is my story. Standing in the kitchen just this week, it really hit me that we are well and truly outnumbered by children. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. Whilst it was busy when Ayla and Aria arrived, we were able to man-mark them when we were out and about, and especially during these busy old toddler years. However, the question was, what happens whenever 3 little children who all need their mommy at the one time? Well, in this week's podcast episode, I want to have a very open and frank conversation with you about what life is really like with 3 young children and making that decision to have another baby after twins. Welcome to the Twins Mommy NI podcast. Today, I want to share a story with you about the exact moment I realised that I was well and truly outnumbered. Not by work colleagues, not by traffic, not by emails even, but by 3 little children. My twin toddlers and baby Lara. Dare I say, the 3 bosses of the household. It started out like any other morning in this house. The twins, Ayla and Aria, were not quite awake just yet, but certainly fully awake in spirit and were vying for my full attention. Ayla wanted porridge, Aria wanted pancakes, and somehow both wanted me to pick them up at the exact same time. And just at that, baby Lara also chose that exact moment to wake up as well. So I remember in that moment, I had a spoon in one hand, I had a cold cup of coffee in the other, and I was really feeling the weight of 3 little people staring at me like full-on toddler intensity. And it hit me. I am well and truly outnumbered by children in this house. It wasn't that I couldn't physically manage them all at once. It was the mental math of it all. 2 toddlers, 1 baby, 3 needs, and only 1 of me. I mean, I did of course feel this way when we went from a family of 2 to 4 when the twins arrived, but it has really hit home now that I have 3 children who all need their mommy. I realised that day that my time, my patience were very limited resources. They have all been well and truly claimed, but yet, in the chaos, something beautiful happened. The twins started cooperating. 1 climbed onto my lap, the other offered baby Lara a toy, and Lara beamed the biggest, sweetest smile, completely unaware of the chaos that was happening around her, and it was only 7 a.m. And it struck me, even when I am outnumbered, love is bigger than numbers. And somehow, chaos could create connection. Beautiful, meaningful connection. I mean, what is more beautiful in life than human connection? It's something that has really carried me through these early days of motherhood. It's the light that sustains me in the dark days. It's the kind words from another mum that I meet at the Tots group. It's a hug and a cup of coffee and a catch up with a mum as we put the world to rights over a hot cappuccino and toddler snacks. It's the scramble at soft play as we enjoy some meaningful conversation with other mum friends as we dance about the ball pool. Being outnumbered doesn't mean we're losing. It means we're navigating a new battlefield here. One where patience is our shield, laughter is our weapon, and love is our strategy. That day, I didn't just survive. I realised that being a mum of twins and a newborn is like being captain of a tiny, chaotic army of love. And yes, sometimes the soldiers are demanding, they're unpredictable, and they can be loud as well, but they're also extraordinary. In that moment, I tried to do what many mums do best, and that's multitasking. I rocked baby Lara with my elbow. I answered a toddler question that wasn't even a question in the first place. But here's the funny thing about being outnumbered. You stop trying to win. You stop aiming for calm. You sit on the floor in milk-soaked socks with a baby on your chest and toddlers leaning into you like gravity has suddenly changed. And you think, well, this is the beauty of motherhood. The real raw magic of family life. In this week's podcast episode, I'd like to have a chat with you about what having twins taught me about motherhood and what having a singleton baby following twins is teaching me differently, and what I do when I'm needed by everyone all at the one time. Does that have any interest with yourself? If it does, grab yourself a hot cup of tea, hot coffee, whatever your chosen beverage is, make yourself cosy and join us as we have a chat on the Twins Mummy NI podcast. As you can tell, my day has been one of those old days in this house. All these great intentions today. I'll get up, I'll be able to work with the children, I'll be able to get everybody fed, be able to settle toddler tantrums, do some nice games, and sit down and get a chance to finally get this podcast episode recorded. Well, most of those things did happen, which was fantastic, but the podcast episode failed me today. So I'm really exhausted. It's coming up to dinner time here in our house, so it is a very busy household, a very busy time of it. It's dark outside, so I will have to pause this podcast recording shortly to feed all three of my children and then come back to it. I'm hoping the girls will be okay this evening and will give me the opportunity to be able to record and finish this podcast episode today. And you know what? Even if we don't get it done, that's okay. Tomorrow's a brand new day and we'll pick up where we left off at. Isn't that true in all things in motherhood? You know, things can be so unpredictable, but I'm learning to breathe, let go, and adapt to any challenges or any situations that are in front of me. So I'm wondering, have you had any more success this week yourselves? Please get in contact with me. You know, I love listening to all of the wonderful stories that you send me on Instagram. And I love hearing where you listen to the Twins Mummy NI podcast. Some of you are perhaps feeding babies. You are driving in your car heading to work. Some of you are hoovering, or some of you are just getting that half an hour at the weekend to yourself to sit down with a lovely hot cup of coffee and have a listen to some of your favourite podcast episodes. So I'm very thankful that you are giving me the opportunity to come into your kitchens, come into your car, come into that free space and just have a chat with you. You know, I don't underestimate that whatsoever, and I'm very thankful for that. So thank you so much for your time. It is a busy old time of it at the minute. You know, I've just had another baby. Toddlers are two little busy bees at the moment. We have lots going on with birthday parties. We have christenings, we have pre-pre, we have nursery, and we have so many things going on. Like all of you, you know, I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast this week and she made a really interesting point and it really struck me. Wait till I bring it up here on my phone because she had it on her Instagram account today. And I thought that comment actually really struck me. One of the things in 2026 is trying to make time to listen to more podcast episodes if I can. It's not easy, but I try to. But I was listening to Mel's podcast this week and I'll read out the quote that she said on her podcast. It said, "Know who's going through a tough time right now. Everyone, be kind." Now I'll read that again from Mel Robbins. You know who's going through a tough time right now. Everyone, be kind. And there are days, you know, I think to myself, gosh, things are so busy. Life is so busy. Not just being a mum, but like everything going on. You know, you read the news, you know, you chat to lots of different people and you hear lots of different things going on. You know, and I look inside our home and, you know, just how busy it is here. And I just think to myself, you know, you have your normal worries, you have your concerns, you have your thoughts about lots of different things going on. But somehow in that moment, whenever Mel said that in her podcast, I thought to myself, you know, I'm not the only one that thinks this way. And I think that's an important theme that I would like to bring throughout all of my podcast episodes. You know, I have said it before. The reason I set up the Twins Mummy NI Instagram and podcast outlets is to shine a light on important topics, and equally, if there's somehow I can help someone out there to know that they are not alone with how they're feeling. I would be the first person to throw my hands up and say that I worry about things. I feel afraid about things. I feel overwhelmed about things. My life is certainly not picture Instagram perfect whatsoever. You know, I'm a very ordinary person. You know, there are things that worry me day to day. There are things I am afraid of. And there are things I can feel stress at times. You know, I am not exempt from that. I am like every other person out there. We all feel very human emotions. And it's important to me to be able to talk about this on the podcast with the one hope that it helps someone out there to feel less alone. We're all in the same boat. But this week has been a busy old week of it. I'm sitting here in the baby room at the minute. I'll give you an example to set the scene. We are in the middle of changing rooms at the moment. So we're putting the twins into a bigger bedroom, and in a few months' time, baby Lara will be moving into the room that I'm currently sitting in at the minute. And I'm sitting in the tiniest little table in front of me. I'm trying to hold up the laptop here with my two knees, and I'm holding the microphone in my hand, constantly checking it that we're still recording. This is not by no means a fancy podcast studio, but you know what? It works for me. It is real, it is honest, and it is really from the front lines of motherhood here in our family home. And that's the most important thing to me, just to be able to have an open and honest conversation with you from the heart of our family home. In that family home, we have been stuck indoors for the past week for the simple reason we are all snowed in. And don't get me wrong, when I look out the window, it is absolutely beautiful. We've had Isla and Aria and Laura out in the snow this week as well. We built a snowman, a questionable snowman at that. You'll agree if you've seen the photograph on Instagram. I got a little sled and we were able to go around the outside of the house in the snow as well, and the girls thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, it's great and it was lovely. But after a couple of days cooped up indoors, everybody can experience cabin fever, and it can be difficult enough. So I had to think of creative and innovative ways to entertain everybody whenever we were snowed in, and we managed the very best. But I've just got an opportunity to sit down now for a third time to try and record this podcast. It is a busy old time of it. I suppose, taken for example, this week in itself, snowed in with 3 under 3 is busy. It is loud, but it wasn't all bad. You know, like all things in life, not everything goes exactly to plan. You know, naps can be hit and miss. For example, take today, not one person in this house took a nap. I say we're in for a real treat later on this evening. There'll be a few cranky people, I would say, later on, and I'm speaking certainly for myself and that anyway. I'd be glad to get to my bed tonight because I'm very tired. It's been a long old day. But you know yourself, motherhood and parenthood essentially, it can be so unpredictable at times. But I'm learning to sort of stop, take a breath, and just embrace that unpredictability and go with whatever challenges or whatever crops up that day. Yes, okay, nothing went to plan this week. All our plans had to stop because the snow arrived. But equally with that, you know, there's a nice warmth in being tucked up inside the house whilst the snow falls outside. It is tiring, of course it is, trying to entertain everybody. But it's also one of those weeks where everything just felt strangely full. Where just getting through means that you did something right. Learning to just let little things slide. You celebrate the small wins in life, don't you? Perhaps a shared nap. Now, if you are a mum or dad of multiples and you're listening to this podcast, you'll understand what I'm talking about. A shared nap time where the twins or the triplets sleep at the same time. Or it's a moment of independent play where the twins play together, a tantrum perhaps that passes very quickly. And by bedtime, everyone is a little worn out, but they're safe, they're together, and the quiet of that day finally settles. And if you're listening to this whilst you're living that as well, or perhaps you're remembering days like this, please know that you are not alone. Snowed in with 3 under 3 isn't about picture perfect memories. It's all about showing up again and again in the middle of the mess. Isn't that what motherhood, parenthood essentially, is all about? The noise fades, the snow melts away, and this season passes faster than it feels. What's left is the truth that you handled a hard day, and that counts for more than it ever gets credit for. You know, I have this saying, and I've said it many times in the podcast before, just because you have a hard day, that does not mean it's a hard motherhood. You do what you have to do to get by, and that is good enough. I suppose life right now is very full in every sense of the word. The twins are 2.5. Laura is 2 months old. I thought to myself that my life was busy before I had children. But let's just say 3 years later with 3 babies, and I can safely say this has been one of the most character building experiences of my entire life, and one that I am very thankful for. I have thrown out the myth that I've carried around that everything should be done a certain way. And I've softened my expectation on family life. And what is working for me is letting go and living each day as it presents itself. If there are days where all we do is keep everyone safe and fed, well, that is a big win. If we don't leave the house, I try not to put so much pressure on myself that I didn't achieve much that day. This is especially true at the minute when we have no choice but to stay indoors until the snow melts away. I try to adapt to situations each day as I see fit. If the toddlers aren't having a particularly good day, perhaps they haven't slept well the night before, and nothing just seems to be going to plan, I stop, put the handbrake on, and I reset for the day. 2.5 years into twin motherhood has taught me lots of different things. But I feel one important thing is that a bad day does not mean it's a bad motherhood. It's just a difficult day, that's it. And the sun will always rise tomorrow. Right, I'm going to pause this podcast here. It's time for the twins' dinner. It'll be a couple of minutes. I'm just going to step away from the microphone, get the twins' dinner sorted, and I'll be back with you very shortly. Hello everybody, we are back again. The twins are eating their dinner just to the right of me here. So I picked up the microphone and you are listening to the Twins Mummy NI podcast. Where was I at? Let's pick up where we left off. I was talking about how I manage difficult days in motherhood. I have learned to breathe through those hard moments. For example, if everyone needs me at the one time, and try and prioritise. What I will say is I worried so much before baby Laura arrived. I worried what it would be like managing a pregnancy with twin toddlers. Beforehand, in my first pregnancy, I didn't really have to think about children because the twins obviously were my first children. So attending maternity appointments, I literally grabbed my green file out the door and away I went. But this time round, Isla and Aria came with me to all of my appointments. So I was thinking about getting snacks ready. I'm sure any multiple families out there who are listening, you'll completely understand what I'm talking about. It's a whole operation to get out the door, getting change of clothes, shoes, wee bottles of juice, snacks, books, toys to keep everybody entertained when we are out and about. So not only did I have my green file to think about to remind myself to bring with me to my maternity appointments, I had all of that, the double pram and Isla and Aria in tow with me. Now, whilst that was a little bit busy, it actually was a little blessing in disguise, and I'll tell you why. It's no secret on the Twins Mummy NI podcast. I've shared it with you before that I felt very afraid before I had children. I felt afraid about what pregnancy would be like. I felt very afraid about what childbirth would be like. And this time around, I noticed whenever I had Isla and Aria with me at the appointments and I was in the waiting room, instead of worrying about, I hope we get good news, I hope everything's going okay, I focused more on my own children. And that really brought those fears and those worries right down. So yes, it was a little bit busier this time managing maternity appointments when I was pregnant with Laura. It was great because Isla and Aria were actually in the pram with me. They weren't inside my tummy this time round, and it was so lovely because I didn't have time to focus on fear or worry because you're a mum in that moment, and that was my focus. And as a result of that, I worried a lot less. So it was actually a good thing. And I noticed that this time around, I was a lot more aware what would happen in my pregnancy. I was a lot more aware of what would happen during the planned C-section as well. So that was really helpful. Something that I worried about beforehand, if I would be able to manage it. And yes, I did. I also worried about not only being pregnant and managing a pregnancy whilst running after twin toddlers, but what life would be like, having 3 very young children together. I thought about that, whenever I was considering having another child or having more babies, because we were told, because we had twins before, we were at a higher chance of having twins again. So I wasn't sure. Being honest with you, if I had twins again, I would love that. Yes, having twins was very busy, but I'm very thankful to have Isla and Aria, and I love having twins. Having twins is one of the best things that ever happened to me, and I love all 3 of my little children. I will say my experience of twin pregnancy was much easier than the second time round. I don't know why that was. I suppose being pregnant with twins, you are catapulted into the high risk category, and with that then you have lots of extra maternity appointments, and with those extra appointments comes the reassurance This time round, I didn't have that. I had a lot fewer appointments, which took a little bit of getting used to. But you know what? I managed. There are, swings and roundabouts with it. I wasn't afraid this time round because I was much more aware what was happening, but I did have a lot fewer appointments, and my experience of a singleton pregnancy was very different to a twin pregnancy. I suppose because my twin pregnancy was my first time being pregnant, becoming a mum for the first time, that was all I knew, and I just thought that this was normal for everybody. I didn't know this is what the twin pregnancy experience was like and just how different that was to a singleton pregnancy. But I was able to manage, and I was able to actually enjoy the pregnancy this time round as well. And those are words that I never thought that I would be ever able to say. And I have to say, I definitely attribute that to the wonderful staff and the care and the support that they gave me during my pregnancy with Isla, Aria and baby Lara. The staff at the maternity unit at Antrim Area Hospital, they were absolutely phenomenal, and I'm very thankful for that they helped me to bring all three of my babies safely into the world. So yes, two different pregnancies, two completely different experiences of birth as well. But I can safely say with my hand on my heart, it was a very positive experience for me, and I'm very thankful for that. I know everybody's experience of pregnancy and birth is unique to them, but this was what my experience was. What I will say is, though, if you are a parent of multiples, you'll know exactly what I'm going to say in the next couple of minutes. Whenever you're out and about in public with your twins or your triplets and everyone looks at you and you get those comments, some of those comments that you don't really want to hear at times whenever you are out and about. Comments like, you have your hands full there, or double trouble, comments like that you'd rather not hear, and they can become a little bit tiring at times, especially when you hear them all the time. Well, what I will say that I have noticed since I have the twins and another baby now as well, those comments have completely amplified. And I would say that I get even more comments now just because I have more children. But what I will say this time round is I am much more fit for those comments. They were such a shock to me after I became a mum for the first time. I did not expect as many comments as that I got in public whenever I was out and about with my twins. I couldn't believe it. It was such a shock for me. They can be really hurtful at times. I remember one in particular. I was coming through a car park and a lady stopped me and she asked me lots of questions about twins, and she even asked me how I gave birth. Was it, in her words, a natural birth, or did I have a section? And I was happy to say that I had a planned C-section for both of my twins, and it was a very good experience and it was the right choice for me. And whenever I told her that, she looked into the pram and spoke to Isla and Aria and said to them, in fact asked them, were they too posh to arrive on their own? And I will never forget that day, because in that moment I felt so inferior. I felt that I failed as a mum because I didn't have a natural birth. Now, I had a planned C-section, but I did have to have a C-section purely because it was a twin pregnancy and both my babies were breech. So that decision was completely taken out of my hands. But I wanted to have a planned C-section because I felt the safest in that experience, and that was the right decision for me. And little did that lady know the journey that I was on to get to that point that day, that I was actually able to walk through that car park with a pram. And in that moment, I promised myself that I would never feel that way again. I have now, 2.5 years into twin motherhood, got the confidence to advocate for myself more and to advocate for families of multiples whenever we are, for example, in situations like this. Whenever people ask me questions or make comments in public, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But I have no control over that. But what I do have control over is my response to that. I tend to react less and less and respond on what the realities is like for families of multiples, whether they're interested in it or not. But I do remind myself that all of the comments we hear is never about our parenting. It's how the author of those comments see themselves in that situation. It is absolutely nothing to do with our experience whatsoever. It is an absolute privilege to be a twin mum. Twins are not a burden. Yes, of course it's hard work, but it is not a burden to have twins. It is a privilege to be a twin mum. And every single day, I am very thankful to say that I am a mum and that I have 3 happy and healthy children here in my home. So whenever I am out and about and I respond that some of these comments aren't helpful. So that is one thing that I did want to share, that comments, families and multiples, I'm sure you're all too aware about. There are a lot more of them since I've had another little baby as well. So that is something that I wanted to be open and honest with you about. In this podcast episode, I will talk about what family life is like and what having twins taught me about motherhood, and equally what having another baby following twins has taught me differently. I want to talk about what I'm finding is helpful and what hasn't been helpful. And I equally want to have a chat with you about what I do whenever I'm on my own and all 3 babies need me at the one time. This is the Twins Mummy NI podcast. In a nutshell, family life is busy. Yes, of course it is. But it was already busy beforehand anyway. This time round, I am much more prepared. And somehow you feel like a pro when it comes to things like logistics, routines, nappy changes even. Certainly compared to last time when I first became a mum. You know, I hadn't a clue what to be at. I had never changed a nappy before. I had no experience whatsoever of looking after young children. You know, if somebody had said to me, say for example, 4 or 5 years ago, Carla, you're going to have 3 young children, close in age together, 2 of which will be twin toddlers. You will pause your career to be a stay-at-home mum to take care of everybody. I would have told you there is absolutely no way I would ever be able to do that. I hadn't one clue where to even begin to look after a child, never mind 3 children. But here I am, taking things one day at a time. And I find that very interesting. I have learned many things since I've become a mother. And one of the biggest things is a strength that you never knew you had. And what I'm trying to do is take the confidence that I'm now growing and the evidence to show that you can face difficult situations, challenges in life that do crop up. You know, you can handle them. In the moment, you just learn a way to get by. So in the future, if any challenges come up or any hard times, difficult days come up, I will remind myself of all the little things that I've managed thus far in my life and remind myself that nothing in my life has beat me yet. And I thought that was a nice thing to think about. You know, if there is somebody out there who's listening and finding things difficult for whatever the reason, you know, remind yourself you have managed all of the hard days up until now. Why will it be any different in the future? We are achieving massive things every single day in the quietness of our family homes. And that should be celebrated. Whether it's a case of everybody's fed, everybody's safe, and everybody's settled, that's all you achieved that day. It's not that's all that you achieved that day. That is massive what you achieved that day. And don't forget that. What we are doing is a wonderful thing. And what I will say is, if any challenges arise in your life, or if they're hard times, remind yourself that you are a strong person and you can absolutely do it. Take the evidence of everything that you've done so far and remind yourself that you are a strong person and it is possible to handle hard things. You know, and talking about challenges there, facing challenges, I suppose the biggest challenge so far in becoming a mum of 3 young children is the fact that I am now divided in 3. You know, the question I asked myself, how do I love my toddlers whilst bonding with a newborn as well? Well, the simple answer is, I just get on with it. I just get on with it. As each situation arises, I do the very best that I can and focus more on what I can do and less on what I can't do. You know, there's only one of me and there's 3 of them. So I learn to prioritise who really needs me in the moment and I work accordingly. I have to say now, the twins have adapted very well to the arrival of their little sister. I wasn't sure how that would go and I was worried about that. beforehand, would the dynamic change in our family home? How would the twins take to the baby? How would the twins feel about mum now because there's another baby? But so far, so good. I let go of any expectations of what things should be, and I try to focus more on letting things happen in a more natural way. Isla and Aria have been so kind with their little sister. I'll give you an example. If I'm feeding Laura and one of the twins needs me, I quietly explain to them that Mammy's feeding baby Laura now and that Mammy will be 1 minute. And I have to say, Mammy will be 1 minute. Mammy will be a wee minute. Mammy will be with you in 1 wee second. Mammy will be with you very shortly. Those are the most used phrases in my house at the minute. And you know what? The twins accept that very well. Fingers crossed, it will continue to be that way. I must say, during my pregnancy, I talked to the girls so much about the little baby that was growing in Mammy's tummy. And I worked with them a lot beforehand with their little dollies. The dolly goes to sleep. The dolly needs fed. The dolly needs her nappy changed. I think with the work that I had done, the little work that I had done with them beforehand, they were able to understand more whenever baby Laura did arrive. There are times now during my pregnancy, they would have lifted up my little t-shirt and saw my pregnant belly. And in fact, they actually gave my belly a hug sometime, which made it on some occasions, which made me very emotional. I couldn't believe, children as young as that, to have that emotion and that understanding of pregnancy and a little baby on the way. But it was really special, in those moments. Now, don't get me wrong, there are moments now, even though baby Laura's here, those girls will lift up my t-shirt and look for the baby. I'll have to say to them, the baby's not in Mommy's tummy anymore. The baby's in her cot, I suppose. Yes, I am still trying to adapt to my new post-pregnancy body, and I certainly do have the mum tum there. I will talk about body image and my experience of body image following my pregnancies as well. It is something that I am learning to adapt to and trying to get used to, but I am appreciating my body for bringing the 3 little girls safely into the world for me. But I will, I think body image, and certainly in the postpartum period, is a very important topic to go after and to talk about. And it is something that I will take on in later podcast episodes. But for now, what I will say is I certainly have not bounced back. But that's okay for me. I don't need to. This idea of bouncing back is not for me. I am so busy at the moment looking after the 3 children. And I'm trying to get to the 12-week postpartum stage as well. Hiya! You can probably hear Aria roaring in the background here. She's enjoying her dinner. I can hear her singing. Yes, Mommy's going to be 1 wee minute. There you go. The most used phrase that we chatted about. Oh no, the girls they're still eating away at their dinner here at the minute. But Mommy will be 1 wee minute and I'll be with them very shortly. We'll keep going here as long as the girls allow me to. Baby Laura actually will need fed, I would say, in the not too distant future as well. She's sleeping here in her little next to me cot. But look, let's keep going. Talking about my post-pregnancy body, I want to get back to the gym. Is that Laura? Sometimes you think you hear a baby cry, but it's not. No, we're okay. She's still sleeping. Yes, I used to go to the gym long before I had children, and that was something that I really enjoyed, and that was normal for me. So I do hope to get back to the gym once I hit that 12-week postpartum period, where it's safe for me to exercise again. I will start off very gently, of course I will. I love the opportunity to be able to get back to the gym. As I say, that's very normal for me. It's something that I enjoy. Exercise helps me in so many ways, and it does wonders for my mood, especially in these early postpartum days of motherhood. So I'm really looking forward to that. Lately I've been feeling quite tired, quite sluggish. I think it's that time of the year, January, dark old days, the dark mornings, the dark evenings. It can be a sluggish and tiring old time of the year with that. But spring is on its way and we'll be able to get back out again, and hopefully I'll be able to get exercising again and feel a little bit more like myself. But in keeping with the topic of what my biggest challenge so far with 3 under 3 is, and I will share a story with you about what life is really like here in our family home. Right, I am back again. Everybody has finished their dinner. I'm hoping to get some dinner myself very shortly, but we'll keep going with the podcast here anyway. I'm looking out the window beside me and it's pitch dark outside. I'm really looking forward to the springtime being here. We're powering through the January and the winter months, the very best, so we're almost there, another few weeks, and we'll hopefully see a little bit of difference in the evening time. But anyway, that's enough of the weather updates for now. Let's just keep going with the podcast. For those of you who are new around here, I am Carla, mum to 2-year-old twins Isla and Daria, and baby Lara is 2 months old. What I will say is, this podcast episode, we're talking about what life is like having a baby after having multiples. And yes, it is a busy time of it, but there's lots of magic to be found as well. The twins have big personalities, which I really love about them. We are in the thick of it at the minute in these toddler years. And I kind of feel that my everyday parenting is purely all about keeping everyone safe. While some things are easier, for example, the girls can feed themselves now. I remember that day when Isla and Daria lift the little milk bottles themselves and feed themselves. That moment was absolutely life-changing. You know yourself, mums of multiples, what it's like feeding 2, perhaps 3 children at the one time. I remember feeding Isla, perhaps, for example, in my arm with the milk bottle and rocking Aria with my foot and the bouncer at the same time, and then switching over for the second feed. There were days that I felt guilty that I didn't meet both my twins' needs at the one time, but that was okay. You know, I wish that was something that I knew before I became a twin mum. You're not going to be able to meet both your baby's needs at the one time all of the time. And you know what? That is okay. There's only one of you and there's 2 of them, but everything will be okay. That is not failing at parenting. That is just twin life. And you get used to it. But things definitely are much easier now. As I say, the girls can feed themselves, they can dress themselves. And one of the advantages of having multiples, obviously, as well, is the girls can entertain each other. They can play away with each other. And I never worry that they feel lonely in the playroom, that they have each other. So that's definitely one luxury of having multiples, and one that I'm very thankful for as well. There are a lot less nappies in our house now, which is great. And the girls have each other, and it's so magical watching them play with each other. I really love that. Now, having said that, there are other aspects which, of course, can be challenging. You know, I would be lying to you to say everything's hunky-dory and rosy. Of course, it's not sunshine, lollipops and rainbows all the time. There are difficult times in parenthood. Of course there is. You know, but I always say nothing worth having in life is ever easy. You know, emotions are high on some days, both theirs and mine. Negotiating nap times and snacks and, you know, feeding time. I notice like the breakfast, lunch and dinner time rush can be the biggest and busiest times in our house each day. For example, even this week, I am applying for nursery schools as well. I cannot believe that those words are coming out of my mouth. You know, I have been a stay-at-home mum for the guts of almost 3 years now. And what has been normal for me is staying at home and looking after my children. And all of a sudden, that is going to change in the not too distant future. And am I ready for it? I absolutely am not. I am looking forward to the fact that Ida and Aria are growing up. They are becoming a little bit more independent. I love the fact that they can go out, make lots of new friends and enjoy some educational activities and everything that's involved with nursery, and I'm excited for them. It's a wonderful new chapter at the very beginning of their education journey, and it is a lovely time. But equally, I feel a little bit of sadness with that as well. You know, it'll be the first time that my babies are going out into the world. They're not holding mommy's hand and they're go off on their own and paving their own way in life. And I'm a firm advocate for that, to get those girls out the door independent and to grow into strong young women so that they will be able to manage whatever life throws at them. But I don't think I'll ever be ready for that. I'm trying my best to build them up as strong and as confident as I can, and that they will be able to handle many challenges that I have no doubt will come their way in life. I'm equally thankful, as I say, this is one huge benefit of having multiples, that they will have each other. That Isla and Aria will be walking, hopefully hand in hand, into the nursery together that day, and that they will have somebody there, a familiar face, and hopefully a warm, friendly, familiar face there. And then in a couple of hours' time, Mum will pick them up and they'll be able to come back home again. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that, but I will come back to you at a later date on how I manage that situation. If there's anybody out there listening who perhaps has returned to work, or perhaps have young children who have gone to pre-pre or nursery or school or what have you, please get in touch with me. Let me know what that experience was like for you and how you managed it. I'm open to any advice, because every day I am learning something brand new, not only about parenting, but about myself as well, and how I'm handling these big situations. Having twins can be hard. Of course it is. There's double the work. There is double the responsibility at all times. But there are lots of advantages too. And I love the fact that Isla and Aria have each other. They play together and they're great company for each other. And whenever they go off to nursery, they will have each other, which is nice. Neither Isla and Aria have ever had 100% of my attention. Through no choice of their own, they were born that way. And that's normal for them. And they're used to that. They're used to managing on their own. They've had to learn to share. They've had to learn to be strong since a very young age. And I welcome that. Baby Laura's needs are completely different at this young age. You know, she needs me 100% all of the time. The toddlers at their little stage need me less and less now as they grow up to be a little bit more independent. And that is helpful when I manage the 3 young children at this stage and at different age levels. But I'm so thankful that baby Laura is such a settled and content little baby. I think I'm more settled myself this time round. I feel much more confident in what I'm doing. And of course, there are days that I am still learning. But I feel like I finally found my feet in motherhood. It took me 2 years, but I finally reached this point. And I guess Laura perhaps senses that calmness about me, and perhaps maybe is a little bit more settled as a result of that. That's my thoughts anyway. I remember the newborn days with the twins that just felt so relentless. I just had Isla and Aria, and 5 weeks later, my father very unexpectedly passed away. And it was such a busy old time of it, managing hormones. I was recovering from my C-section. I was learning how to be a mum to 2 very young babies and trying to learn how to navigate in a world without my father in it. It was a busy old time of it. And with that, even the day-to-day running of the house and looking after the babies, there were 2 sets of nappies to change. There were 2 babies to feed throughout the night, and I worried a lot what I would do when both the twins cried at the same time. This time round, I noticed I worry less and I let things happen naturally, and I feel so much more freer as a result of that. Does that make sense? So yes, that is my honest experience of having a child after having twins. Just to recap, you somehow find your confidence. You find your way in life, in motherhood. All of the experience that I have learned having twins, I've applied this time round. And I've applied things that I feel worked, got rid of the things that I felt didn't work last time round. I give you an example of what a typical day in our house usually looks like. It is first up around 7 a.m, followed shortly by Aria around about 7:15. I am working on the girls' independence at the minute, so we're getting ready, and we're making getting ready and out of bed a fun activity together. We get changed for the day, where we pick out all our little clothes together and we all sit down at the table and eat our breakfast. Now, some days the girls like scrambled eggs and toast, some days they prefer pancakes, but I tend to just go with the flow, however they're feeling that morning. I certainly don't force them to eat certain foods, and this has worked very well in our house. It makes life with 3 young children a little bit more easier. I know myself, there are days that I'm in the mood for certain foods, and then perhaps the next day I can take it or leave it, and my girls are no different. So that's the approach that I use, certainly when it comes to eating in our house. Once we're all changed and into our little outfits for the day and we're fed, it's hygiene time, so we're washing our faces, toilet time, brushing our teeth, and I try to incorporate some songs into that, because sometimes the girls don't want to brush their teeth, they don't want to get changed out of their jammies, especially in these cold January mornings, and they couldn't be bothered getting up and out of bed and ready for the day. So I try to make it more exciting. I know there's days myself I couldn't be bothered getting out of bed. I just want to keep nice and cozy and warm underneath the duvet. And the girls are exactly the same. So I try to make it a more fun activity. Singing songs. I'm sure our neighbours are fed up listening to me crowing next door. But that's what it takes to get everybody up and out and ready for the day. So that's what I'm going to do. You know, some days the girls can be reluctant, for example, to brush their teeth, but for the most part, they are okay. So I've turned it into a little singing challenge, and that works very well, certainly for now anyway. At this stage, usually once the girls are up and fed, baby Lara is usually ready for her breakfast. So I pop the twins in their toy room and they're happy to play independently together, as I then change and feed baby Lara. So that works out well. I try to do some type of learning activity with them in the morning and one in the afternoon together as a family. There are days that I just don't manage it for whatever reason. Things crop up during the day. Perhaps the girls aren't in great form. Maybe I'm exhausted myself. Baby Lara needs me maybe a wee bit more some days than other days. So in those hectic, busy moments, I'm learning to put less pressure on myself if the days don't go as planned. It's okay. I'll give you an example of some of the activities we do. Just very, very simple stuff. No pressure. Reading stories. The girls love books. I've noticed more and more now they're getting more interest in looking at the pictures and talking about the actions and the words in each of the songs or each of the books as well. Sometimes we sing little songs together. Our girls love playing with water. So I try to incorporate a little water activity each day. Now that sounds very fancy, you know, a big wonderful water tray. But you know what it is? It's 2 small kitchen basins that I used to use, I don't use any longer. Throw in a little bit of bubble bath and some of their little toys. So it could be little plastic blocks or little plastic cups. And this usually gives me half an hour if I need to work with Lara, or I want to sit down and enjoy and start and finish a hot cup of coffee in the morning. And it's great. It's something very simple, something very expensive, and it works very well. I like to be a little bit creative. I wanted to be a teacher, believe it or not. That was always my plan for my career, a primary school teacher or perhaps working in a special school. But unfortunately, I wasn't successful in getting into the PGCE course. I did get into the Masters in Journalism instead, so journalism was the route for me. But I always, even though I wasn't successful in getting into the PGCE course and being able to be a teacher, I still had a lot of interest there. And I worked in summer camps for 4 years in America. These were special needs summer camps, and I was the music and drama teacher there. And I loved creating lots of different things. And I've taken all of the learning that I have used from the summer camps and lots of different work experiences that I have in a teaching field. I brought it into our family home. So yes, I might not have been able to be a teacher, but I was able to bring the love of that and the interest of that into my own family home. And I create some tough trays, for example. That's one thing about the world around my children. So, for example, we're in the middle of winter at the minute. So I went about the house, found a few winter-themed objects that have been lying about, little ornaments or little gifts that people have given us. Like there was little ice skates, there was a little polar bear that I found. What else? There was even like Christmas decorations of a snowman that I pulled off the tree. And we had the book The Snowman and we had the book The Polar Express. So little things like that worked very well. As an old snowman that my mum had up in the attic, a big plastic one that I was able to bring down here and just throw together on a tough tray. You know, you don't have to be very creative or spend lots of money. Everything that I create is something I have lying about the house. So I sometimes go to charity shops and pick up little odds and ends there which aren't very expensive and just throw something together. And the girls get a lot of enjoyment out of that. We talk about the objects that we use, the colours, the numbers and their meaning in the world. The girls are still very young. They're still learning and have lots of learning to do, but I try to make it a fun activity as best as I can. Some days the girls love this, some days they aren't bothered, and again, I go with them and how they're really feeling that day. I'm trying not to put as much pressure on myself and try to go with the flow more and how all of us in the house are feeling that day. If we're not feeling up to it, couldn't be bothered, there are those days, then we go at a much slower pace. The girls still take a little nap each day. It's usually about 30 minutes. It is much shorter, but I'm very thankful for that nap and I would like to hold on to it as long as I can. As they nap, it's usually time for Laura's next feed before we crash into the lunchtime feeding time rush. Once again, as I say, the breakfast, lunch and dinners are probably the busiest time in our house. But once lunch is finished up for everyone, I try to get us all outside in the afternoon. Now that is weather permitting. We've been able to get out and about a little bit with the snow, but we haven't really been able to travel too far. I'm not a big fan of driving in the snow, certainly when it's snow like that. There's so much of it. So we are cooped up indoors, but I am looking forward to the nice spring weather coming. And I love getting out and about, even just for a short walk or going and feeding the ducks in the local park. Simple things like that just change up your perspective and just lift everybody's little moods that day. It is hard. Now, I will say getting us all packed up and out the door. It was a lot harder in the beginning, but I'm much more used to it now. At the start, when Laura wasn't too old, I think I counted it took us about 40 minutes to get everybody changed, suited and booted, into the car, seatbelts on, the key in the ignition and out our driveway, out the road. But I still did it. Because I remember when I found it hard getting out and about with the twins on my own, as hard as it was every time that I was out, I never regretted it and I felt so much better for making the effort and getting out the door. Talking about being out and about, what I do now is if I want to go for a walk somewhere, there's nowhere really safe around our house, so we have to get in the car and drive somewhere that actually fits a double pram. What I have done a lot is I place the twins in the pram. I'm very lucky that they're still quite happy at the minute to more or less to stay in the pram, certainly for walks because there's plenty to see around them. And I place baby Laura on me in a baby carrier, and that works well for me. It is hard at times, managing all three of us, but I always remind myself once we're out, it is always worth it. I've been very lucky. A twin mum who I've met through Instagram here and who lives locally very kindly loaned her wagon, and I'm going to be honest with you, it has been absolutely life-changing. It is a piece of equipment that I can safely put Ayla and Aria into and baby Laura all in the one wagon. And I can push all three of my babies at the one time. I have spare hands. There's great little pockets in it, for any snacks that we need, juice, nappy bag, what else, bottles of milk, things like that, my purse, my phone, my keys, all in it as well, and it's great. So you just pop everybody in and away you go. It has really been life-changing, so I'm very, very thankful for Sonia for that. I love getting out and about. I'm going to try my best if I can. If the weather's good tomorrow, the snow's away and it's a wee bit warmer, I'm going to try to get us all into this wagon and take us all out for a little walk tomorrow afternoon. I love listening to music on these walks because I feel, even though I have my three children with me, I still have some time just for me in the process as I go for the walk and I listen to my favourite songs, and the girls are well entertained with all the lovely things around them to see. I do like to point out different things that we see in our walk and talk to the girls about that too, just to make it interesting for them. But once we're home again from our walks or wherever we've been that day, it's usually crash bang into the dinner time rush where all three children need feeding at the same time. Now, thankfully, my husband is usually home from work at this stage, which is great because I finally get an extra pair of hands to make the dinner or to settle emotions or to change Laura's nappy. It is a very busy time, certainly at that time of the evening. Now, once the dinner time rush is over and all five of us are fed, then it's time for some more independent play before we get bath time, a little storybook, and then down for bed. Now, I look forward at this time of the day to get some free time to myself once everybody is in bed sleeping. There are days that I'm just so exhausted that I just roll into bed once everybody is asleep because I know I'll be up in a few hours to feed Laura. But on the days that I find that I do have some energy left, I love to make myself a little cup of tea, switch off and either listen to a good podcast or read a good book. Sometimes, if I have very little energy or very, little brain power, I like to just switch off and watch a TV series. Usually an odd time I make a few notes and thoughts on these podcast episodes as well, if I have any brain power left at that stage of the day. But these little quiet moments, albeit fleeting at times, are the moments that really sustain me each day. Now, that's really a very, very short little snapshot of a behind the scenes look of what an ordinary day looks like in our house. It's nothing fancy. There's no pressure putting anybody, but there is lots of learning, there's lots of doing, and lots of love all wrapped up in that one day as well. You know, people ask me all the time, Carla, how do you do it with 3 under 3 when I'm on my own and my husband is away at work? And you know what? There is no magic answer for that. I just do it. And I do it again. And when I thought I couldn't do it, I just did. And I never looked back. And I have so much to be thankful for. An honest motherhood moment that captures all of what we've chatted about today was just this week, when all 3 of my children needed me at the one time. The doorbell went. It was the postman at the front door. At that, the grocery delivery driver arrived at my back door, and the phone was ringing all at the one time. So I decided to just stop, breathe, and manage each little situation one at a time. I placed Lara in a bouncer. I offered the toddlers a fresh drink. I ran to the front door to grab the letters from the postman. I ran to the back door to start unloading the groceries for the week. And I just let my phone go to voicemail. I'm sure many of you multiples families out there, you know that some things just have to wait, and that's okay. Feel okay with that, especially when we're so busy in our day-to-day happenings. If the phone has to go to voicemail, that's okay. Things like that used to bother me, and it's like, I missed that. Or maybe it had been days before I text back one of my friends, and I actually felt quite guilty about that, but now I don't. I am busy, and I will try my best to get back to everybody and be able to sort situations out when they arise. Now, on that particular day, I managed to handle the situation as best as I could. If I was tired, or for example, perhaps if it was my time of the month, I probably wouldn't have handled that situation the way that I did that day. But I was thankful that I was able to handle that situation. I think 2 years into twin motherhood has taught me to accept that yes, there are times that are very demanding, but they are fleeting. And I've learned to breathe through the hard moments and hold on to the fact that things do get easier. Lots of people said to me, listen, you know, this will get easier. It will get easier. And I thought to myself, it just feels so relentless. How can that be possible? I want it to be easier now. But I promise you, it really does get easier. I think for me, motherhood with 3 under 3, it's not about having my hands full, which lots of people do tell me about on a weekly basis, but rather it's more about lessons that I never expected and gifts that I will never forget. Just to recap, managing logistics being the biggest challenge and yet the biggest lesson in motherhood so far. I'm sure you know rightly yourself what I'm talking about. Like, how do we manage to get our twins and triplets out the door and back again in one piece when we're outnumbered? Managing these logistics was something that I had to get smart about quite quickly once my husband did return to work following the twins' birth. And I worried so much about that beforehand, you know, things like how would I feed everyone? How would I manage nap times? And how in the world could I even get out that door? That was my biggest concern, believe it or not, when he returned to work after baby Laura's birth this time round. And I think it's just because we had an extra baby. It meant that there was 3 babies and 1 of me. I mean, I felt that I'd got the twins routine down to a T. And now I had another little baby to take care of as well. I really did feel well and truly outnumbered. But I decided to just try it. And I always told myself, if it was really that difficult, I can always just turn and come home again. Well, so far, I've never needed to make that journey home, just yet, anyway. And I'm very glad that I do find the confidence each day to just manage a situation, just do it, and get out that back door and out into the world to meet other adults and get chatting to other people. You know, because it can be lonely in the house when it's just babies and you. There's no adult conversation, not at the minute anyway. There are negotiations with questions that aren't questions from my toddlers on a daily basis. But it's nice to get out and about and meet other people and have conversations with adults as well. You know, that's very important to me. But I'm not going to lie, when we had the twins, so many people made comments, which I've mentioned briefly about before, about having my hands full. But it has really escalated to another level now since I had twins and a new baby as well. I do get used to the surprised looks and the personal questions from public, and I am happy to respond that being a mother is not a burden. Rather, it is a privilege, and one that I am very thankful for. I also worried about nap times and how I would manage the nightly feeds with Laura. And equally, how in the world, if I'm up during the night with Laura, how I would have enough energy to take care of twin toddlers during the day. And I have to say, it hasn't been as difficult as I thought it would be. I think, and you'll know this yourself if you're a mum or dad of multiples listening, feeding one baby feels like a holiday compared to the double nightly feeds that we had before with the twins. Everything just feels much more manageable with one. Much less relentless and more calm. I still find it so very different having one little baby compared to my experience with twins. I didn't have time to worry about this before, and I just had to get on with it with the twins. Where now the nighttime feeds feel so much easier with one little baby. And therefore, I do find that I have enough energy during the day to be a mum to everyone. It has been a big old day, so forgive me. I am tired and I'm going to feed baby Laura very shortly here. So I'll finish this little section, feed baby Laura, and probably I'll take a good rest tonight and come back nice and refreshed to finish the rest of the podcast episode. But we'll keep going for now. I must admit, my attention is divided in 3 different ways. And I try not to feel guilty about that. I was an only child, and I always said I would love to have a few children if I could. I love the idea that they would have siblings to support one another as they journey through life together. So yes, it can be busy, and it can be hard at times, certainly in these early childhood years. But equally, I find it hard to imagine life without them. So I do what I can to get by and make sure that everyone knows that Mommy loves them. There are times that I tell the twins that Mommy will be 1 minute, that she has to feed baby Laura. And as I say, they are accepting of that. And it is no bad thing that they're learning patience. They may not like it at times, but I do see their maturity growing each day, which is great for them as they go out and about in the world and live independent lives of their very own. So yes, my attention is divided in so many ways, but I try to make sure I do what I can to get by. One thing I did notice with a new baby is that the noise levels in our house have reached a brand new level altogether. It can feel like a lot at times. It can feel quite overstimulating at times. So I've really upped my game in managing my mental load as a result of this. And I must throw my hands up in the air and say, yes, I am guilty when I chat to my mum friends and even on this podcast and Instagram space, the importance of minding our mental health and motherhood and the importance of making time for ourselves. But when it comes to myself, I'm not as good at living up to my own advice as others. So I've decided to try and do something about it this time round. I actually take an hour for myself at the weekends to fill my cup up with things that I love to do. I love going for a quiet coffee alone, putting my headphones in and just listening to my favourite music, enjoying a hot cappuccino and reading a good book. Perhaps going to the gym and blowing off some steam there. These are just some examples of little things that I've started to incorporate into my week, which has been life-changing in managing my mental health and motherhood. I never made time for myself before when I had the twins, but I notice the difference when I do make the time now since having Laura. The challenges with 3 under 3, and keeping with the topic for this part of the podcast about the challenges with 3 under 3, I want to have a chat with you about what has surprised me the most. But before I do that, baby Laura is shouting for my attention. So what I will do is, I am feeling quite exhausted at the minute. I'm going to turn the microphone off here. I'm going to go and feed baby Laura and I'm going to put my feet up. So what I will do is I'll park this conversation for now. I'm going to feed baby Laura and we'll crash into their bedtime. And I'm hoping that I'll get 5 or 10 minutes to myself later with a cup of tea, put my feet up and actually watch a wee TV series because I'm really exhausted today. And I'll come back nice and refreshed tomorrow morning and continue the rest of that podcast then. I want to chat to you about what has surprised me the most so far with having a third baby. thank you so much for your patience so far in the podcast. We are managing the very best with the recording of this one, and I will be in touch with you tomorrow for the next part of this podcast. Hello, you're very welcome to the Twins Mummy NI podcast. It is the next morning since I last had a chat with you, and I'm so glad that I decided to take a rest and pause the record of this podcast to start it back up today again. I get a good night's sleep last night and I feel all the better for it. So we're back again. Let me pick up from where I left off. I was talking about challenges with having 3 young children and in particular about having a single baby after having twins. But I want to have a chat with you about what surprised me the most. I suppose, taking everything into consideration, I am surprised at my ability to just be able to get up, push on and get on with things, even when they feel so heavy and so hard. If someone had told me a few years ago that I would have 3 very young children and all close in age, 2 of which would be twin toddlers, the fact that I paused my career to be a stay-at-home mum, I would have told them that there is absolutely no way that I would ever have been able to manage that. I had no experience of children. I had no idea where in the world to even begin looking after children. But I'm surprised that you just find a way to get through, don't you? I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. As mums and dads of multiples, we find strength like we never knew we had. I think having twins, having children, it stretches you, but it strengthens you all at the same time as well. In the moment, you just find a way through. When I look back on these years, I have no doubt I will ask myself many times how in the world that I managed, especially having twins as a first-time mum, and then very sadly losing my own dad very shortly after that. But I want to take the fact that we can, and we did do it, to help me when other things in life may crop up. I suppose I thought it might be helpful to have a chat with you about some things that I feel worked and some things that I feel didn't work after having twins. This time round, I like to get routines a little bit more flexible. I'm not as rigid now with nap times. I remember before I was like, nap times have to be at a certain time and that meal times have to happen at this time or that. Rather, I try to let go of fixed sessions and just let each day flow a little bit more freely. And to be honest, this has been one of the most freeing things that I have done since becoming a mum. I think life was so relentless in the beginning with the twins that I did have to stick to those routines just to help me to manage each day. But as the girls grow up, they are becoming a little bit more dependent, which certainly helps a lot. And I try to let them direct the day at times. I know, hear me out. Some days we all wake up and we just don't feel like doing certain things. Do you ever get days like that yourself? Perhaps the whole house is tired, with maybe lots going on, it's a busy old time of it. Maybe something is weighing us down, bothering us, it's on our mind. Perhaps maybe it's my time of the month and my energy levels are very low. And my kids are no different. There are days where we keep things nice and simple. And that is okay, because that's all we can manage in those days when we aren't really feeling like ourselves. And the more I let go and just go with the flow, the easier things have become. Certainly this time of the year with the dark mornings and the rainy afternoons, I like to take things nice and slow. If all we manage some days is that everyone is fed, warm and entertained with a few toys, then that's good enough. The more flexible that I am with my routine, the less stressed I feel, and things somehow feel a little bit more enjoyable. Just this week, I have arranged the house in a way that is a lot more manageable for the 3 children. Now, I want to have a chat with you about this. Mum guilt. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. As a twin mum, I always felt guilty about quite a number of things. I felt guilty that I had to place the twins in a room to play in with a child gate on. I have a toy room, which is their little space of their very own. But I have to say, I felt guilty a lot that they hadn't the full run of the house. If I had a single baby, then this would probably be the case. They would have had the full run of the house. But the only way in our home to keep everyone safe, especially, for example, when I'm feeding baby Laura, is to create a safe space in a little toy room where the twins can play away, and this has been working very well for me. I do feel guilty about it at times, but it works. Their play has really benefited from this, so there are always positives to be found if we only look for them. I worried so much the first time round that I needed to be playing with the twins all the time, that I learned that independent play is much more important than structured play. And it has created a better space for both the twins and myself, and a much more smoother day. I noticed that I had much more time to achieve the things that I needed to do that day. And the girls really loved their own freedom to play in their own way. Once they're understanding and awareness of safety, I will be able to give them the full run of the house. I have this week extended their toy room into a couple of other rooms, so they do have a free run of a couple of rooms in our house, which is great, and that works very well. They're happy. And I'm happy because I know they're safe, and especially if I'm attending to Laura's needs, I know they're safe and well, whilst I can focus on feeding baby Laura. This time around as well, I wear baby Laura in a sling. The poor wee pet hasn't even been in a pram yet. But the easiest way, certainly at the minute, to keep everyone safe when we are out and about is to wear Laura on my chest in a baby carrier and push the twins in the double pram. I try to get the twins out and about of the pram as much as I can. So we try to attend tots groups and soft play areas where they can go off and play away in a safe environment. And equally, I'm able to look after Laura, and that is working very well at the moment. As the twins do get older and they understand more, and as I say, become more aware, safety aware, I hope that they will be able to walk alongside the pram as I push Laura, but that's for another day. And the more that I plan before I leave the house, the much more smoother things are. The more that I reduced my expectations on things, the easier my life has certainly become during this season of motherhood. If the laundry doesn't get done, and the dishes are sitting in the sink, and the ironing is piling high, then that is okay. I tend not to beat myself up about all the small things like this and focus more on what actually is achievable. The housework will get done. As long as everyone is fed, they're warm and looked after, then that is good enough. I try to make things much more simpler for myself, and that has been working very well so far. There is always room for improvement, but the more that I let go of expectation and just keep things nice and simple, the more manageable motherhood is for me. Now, I want to have a chat with you about managing twin dynamics and what that looks like when you introduce a new baby. I'll have a chat with you what it was like whenever I brought baby Laura home from the hospital. I remember it was dark, it was coming up to bedtime, and we were taking Laura home from the hospital, her to meet her twin sisters for the very first time. Now, I don't think we could have picked a worse time. You know what it's like coming up to bedtime. It can at times be a cranky old time of it, but I needn't have worried. Whenever we come home, I went into the little toy room where Isla and Aria was first, just to let them see that Mum is home. This was the first time that I had an overnight stay away from the girls. I was a little bit nervous about that. I wasn't sure how that would go. But everything was very well. They certainly didn't miss Mommy, and they were happy enough playing away with their toys, so I'm very thankful for that. But I came into the room and I had two big hugs from Isla and Daria. I was so happy just to see their little faces. I really missed them, I was nervous leaving them, and I knew I was going up for major surgery. I had a lot of confidence in the consultants and the doctors that were working with me. You always have that wee worry in the back of your mind. I hope I'll be able to come home and be well. and continue to be a mum to Isla and Daria. Obviously, it is major surgery. There are, of course, some worries there, but it was lovely to be able to come home and to see their little faces after having come through that experience of birth and my hospital stay as well. So I spent some time with them and we sang some songs and we had a little chat. And then I decided to bring baby Laura in after that to meet them. So we brought her in her little car seat, and I'll never forget their two faces. They just looked at me and they looked at the baby, and I knew they knew exactly what was going on. They knew that the baby had been in Mummy's tummy and now the baby was here and was home with all of us. And the excitement, like they were so intrigued. I remember Aria just jumping up and down, so excited. She kept looking at me and looking at the baby and looking at me and looking at the baby as if, oh my goodness, look at this. What, the baby's here. It was the sweetest thing ever. And at that, Isla came over to see Laura. She took her little blanket off and she gave her a little hug. Oh my goodness. And I know the hormones were all over the place with me at that stage, but I just felt so emotional and so tearful just to see all of my three girls together for the very first time. It was such a special moment and one that I will never forget. Don't get me wrong, shortly after that, they did try to steal her little teddy bear. They did try to steal her little blanket. That hasn't changed since either. Survival of the fittest in our house, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because each of the girls will have to learn to be strong from a very young age. Something that I certainly wasn't used to in my house, being an only child, but there you are. But it was such a beautiful moment. I didn't know how that would go. I had thought about bringing the girls up to the hospital to see us, but I decided not to make that decision. I was only in for one day, and I wasn't sure what their reaction would be seeing Mum in a hospital or in a hospital bed. And it was quite a busy old time of it up there, and I couldn't really move obviously much either with the C-section. So I decided to wait to bring baby Laura home, and I'm glad I made that decision. Please, decision on things like that, is up to them, but I felt that worked very well for us. And so far so good. The dynamic in our house hasn't changed. The girls have very much accepted that they have a little sister now, and at times, Mum has to attend to her needs, and they are very accepting of that. Perhaps it's you can hear them chirping away. They're two happy ladies here this morning in our house. The morning times are so lovely. I tend to have nice slow mornings whenever I can, particularly at this time of the year. Let me open the curtain here. Oh no, it's light. It was dark whenever I started recording. The light has just come up now. It's 8:30, so the sun has finally rose, which is nice, and daylight is upon us. But during these slow days, I try to have a nice slower morning that's nicer, and they're happy enough to play away, so it's great. But yeah, no, life's in the house so far. Laura's 2 months old and things are going very well. Things may change as we go down the line, but they are very accepting and very welcoming of their little sister as well, and I am very thankful for that. I try to include them with the work that I'm doing with Laura as well, like to reach over Mommy a little nappy for Laura, I sometimes even place them in my lap and they hold the little bottle as we feed baby Laura together, and I think they like that. They like to be involved, and I think that's very important. But no, so far so good. Any jealousy or regressions? No, I haven't noticed anything like that yet. I genuinely, with my hand on my heart, I think because the girls are twins, they're so used to having another sibling right from birth. They don't know what it was like to have 100% of Mommy's attention, or they don't know what it's like to have 100% of Daddy's attention. That's normal for them. So I think introducing a new baby into the mix hasn't really changed things. I don't know whether that would have been different if Isla and Aria were singleton babies and then twins came along after that. I genuinely don't know. No, things have just been a very smooth process so far. Whether that, as I say, will change when everybody gets older, who knows? I am very lucky that Laura is quite a content little baby, and she sleeps very well and she feeds very well for me, so I am very thankful for that. Perhaps the smooth transition has helped as well. But no, there hasn't been any jealousy or any regression so far yet. One good thing that I noticed with having baby Laura is the fact that it helps me to encourage more independence with the girls. Because there are three of them and there's only one of me, you have to be realistic here. There will be times that Laura needs more of my attention than the twins do, and the twins pick up on this very well. And for example, if Laura needs soothed, or maybe she's a little bit of wind, or trying to get her over to sleep, sometimes that may take a little bit of time. And if the twins need me, I'll say to them, Mommy's going to be 1 minute, and I encourage that independence and to encourage the patience there as well. And I think that can only be a good thing. I did feel guilty about that and what that might look like whenever those occasions did arise, but no, there's been no issues so far. I try to let the twins still be twins while I bond with baby Laura. It is great that they have each other and they play with each other. And I'm so thankful they're at this little stage now where they can entertain each other, which is definitely one of the perks of having multiples. One thing that I'm trying to make more time of this time round since having Laura is making space to take care of my mental health in motherhood. This was something that I really didn't do the last time round, purely because life was so busy and all of my energy was taken up looking after the children. And at the end of the day, I had very little energy or time to think about myself. And this was something that I wanted to improve on this time round, especially in this first year after having a little baby. The hormones are everywhere. I'm trying to get used to my body image. Life has become a little bit more busier. And I think it's important. I talk about it all the time, the importance of managing your mental health. But when it comes to myself, I'm not very good at taking my own advice. So I've decided to do something about that. I try to normalise the challenge of having 3 young children without glamorizing burnout in the process. What I do, which is helpful this time round, is actually carving out small moments just for myself. That could be at the end of the day, sitting down with a hot cup of tea and reading a good book just for half an hour. You see, actually getting that half an hour space, and quiet time and time for yourself really strengthened me, and it really, I noticed a big change in my mood whenever I had that. It just gave me those few quiet moments where nobody needed me. I wasn't pulled in 3 different directions all at the one time. Just felt normal for me. And it really, I noticed my mood boosting in a good way, and it helped me to even be a better mum to my young children as well. It's very important to manage our mental health as best as we can. That might look so different for so many people. I would always encourage someone, if they feel that things are getting on top of them, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. That might be from a friend, from a family member, perhaps a GP, a therapist, whatever that might look like for you. Because I am a firm believer, keeping myself well, and therefore that will emulate throughout our family home as well, as a mum, as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter, as a niece, what have you. So yes, I am making a lot more effort this time around to take care of myself, and it's working very well for me. I've let go of this idea of perfection in parenting. This idea that I conjured up in my head that things should be this way, or, I should be doing this all of the time, was unnecessary. And all I was achieving was putting lots of stress and pressure on myself that there was no requirement for. And as a result of that, I felt really overwhelmed. I felt very overstimulated each day, especially when so many people needed me at the one time. I've decided to change things and do something about that as well. If I am feeling overwhelmed, or I feel moments can be quite stressful, I stop, I breathe, I slow things down, and I break things up into much more manageable components, and that works well for me. Whenever I get that little time for myself in the evenings or the weekends when my husband's here, I try to even get out of the house and go for a coffee, or to get out and go for a walk by myself. It is very strange going for a walk when I don't have a pram with me. But I notice even carving out some time for these little moments just for myself has really re-energized me, and my own experience of motherhood is much more enjoyable as a result of that. We are coming quite close to the end of the podcast, and I want to have a chat with you about the funny yet humbling moments in motherhood that I have experienced so far. For example, when all three children need me at the one time. I notice in those busy moments, nobody in this house gets the right name now. Poor Laura has been called Aria stroke Laura, Laura so many times. I've called Ayla Aria and I've called Aria Ayla. And baby Laura's just in the middle of it all. And it's quite funny. Now, I know this will be more meaningful whenever they're much older and more aware of things, but I'm really trying to get each child's name right. So do forgive me, even in this podcast, mixing up names. I don't know why you think there's only 3 children in the house, but that is definitely one thing I've noticed. Like, I'm telling my husband something that's happened that day. I'm like, Ayla, no Aria, no Laura, you know. But I'm really trying to work on that as best as I can. I suppose a real humbling experience for me so far is leaving the house. You know, I thought it was busy old going, leaving the house with twins, but my goodness, leaving the house with 3 children, especially a young baby and toddlers, it just feels like the Olympics to get out of the house. In the early days with Laura, it took about a good 40 minutes. Leaving the house is like an Olympic sport. Getting everything organised. I have a nappy bag for Laura, change of clothes, I have bottles, I have milk to bring with me. For the toddlers, change of clothes for them, shoes, their juice bottles, snacks, you know, and then my purse, my phone and my keys on top of that, and a hairbrush if I'm lucky to get the hairbrush before I head out the door there, but sometimes I've even forgot to brush my hair. The more organised I am the night before, if I know I'm going somewhere the next day, I set out, I have a nappy bag and a supplies bag, as I call it now, everything packed the night before, sitting at the back door, ready to lift and just in the car. I have everybody's outfits, socks, shoes, coats, hats, all the regalia, whatever we need, set out the night before, so it's just a matter of putting the bag in the car and away we go. I always like to make sure that I have a flask of water with me and a snack, so this could be like a little Fibre One bar or a banana to keep my energy going with me as well, and I find that really helps whenever we are getting out and about as well. I suppose some advice that I wish that I had learned earlier before I became a mum. You know, I at times question my ability of being a mum or being a twin mum, and certainly being a mum to 3 young children. And I wish someone had said to me, you know, all the things that I worried about are very much unnecessary at times. You know, you're not doing it wrong. It is hard at times. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. You know, progress is linear. Some of the things that I wish that I knew before I became a mum, and a twin mum, say, for example, you won't always meet both babies' needs at the same time, and that is okay. This isn't failure. It's just twin life. Routines become your lifeline. I notice even with Laura here as well, having the set routine with the twins, it keeps things very normal for them, and it has been really life-changing having that routine. And I think emotions on how everybody's feeling has sort of stayed the same, so there hasn't been any regressions or any big changes in our house, which is great. I wish I could go back and tell myself that things do get easier. The first few months do feel like survival mode. And I was very mindful of that whenever I had Laura this time round. But you realise all of a sudden that you're not just coping, you're thriving. You become stronger than you knew, don't you? You don't really recognise that strength that you grow until you look back on yourself and think of all of the things that you have experienced. You know, being a twin mum, being a mum of 3 under 3, it really stretches you, but it strengthens you as well. You discover a version of yourself that you never knew existed. One thing that I would have been guilty of is comparison. That was something I was guilty of in my life long before children came along. I would have compared myself and things that I had achieved in my life compared to other people my age, you know, for example, with my work. Comparison was something that I always needed some little improvement on, and that seeped into parenthood as well. I try not to, in fact, I don't compare my twins whatsoever. It's very important to me, and I'm sure you know yourself, as mums and dads of multiples, comparing twins is not something that we tend to do. We are very aware some twins are identical and they look the same, but they are two completely different individuals. I have a saying, together they're complete, but apart they are unique. And I think that's very true. Ayla and Aria are two completely different, unique individuals. Their personalities are very different. Their interests, their dislikes are very different. Even their choice of foods are very different, and I welcome that. They will probably be compared a whole life because they're twins, and I will try to work on that as best as I can, because I think it's important that, yes, I've interviewed a few twins on this podcast, and I asked them what their own experience is like when growing up, having been called the twins, and there are some situations arise where they don't really like that. I noticed one thing, as they get older, they said that sometimes people would send one birthday card to the twins, and as they get older, they thought it would be nice to have a little birthday card separate for themselves. So that's definitely something I will be mindful of. I think I have, yes, in the past 2 birthdays I've had with Ida and Aria, I think I've given them one card together. So that is something that I'd like to make sure that I write a card to Ida and I write a card to Aria, and I think that's very special. And there will be many things that I will learn as I go through motherhood for Ayla, Aria and Laura to celebrate their unique and individual personalities as well. I suppose survival mode is still success, and I didn't really think about that before. It just was all go, 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 go whenever I became a mum. You do get into that situation where you're just trying to survive and get through another day. Being a mum of young children can be messy, it can be loud, and it can be exhausting, but it can also look like tiny victories, laughter and love as well. Starting off this new year, lots of people make different resolutions and set different goals and things like that. This year, I'm trying to do something different. I have incorporated, or I have set some very realistic goals for myself, but at the same time I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. If I don't achieve these, that is okay. It is, I talk all the importance all the time in this podcast about minding our mental health and maternal well-being. I think it is very important to do the best we can to take good care of ourselves when this particular season of motherhood is a very busy time of it. What I'm doing, I'll give you an example of some of the things that I'm trying to improve on this year. I'm trying to choose progress over perfection. I'm letting good enough be the standard. For example, when it comes to meals or routines or even the house and even parenting days themselves, consistency for me matters far more than flawless execution. I'm protecting one small daily anchor for myself. It's not a full self-care routine, just one non-negotiable. A quiet coffee, it could be a short walk, or perhaps a shower without rushing. Small, repeatable care in my book adds up. I'm trying to respond more and react less when possible. I'm not always calm in motherhood, and I'm not going to be always calm in motherhood in life. That's so unrealistic, and that is okay. The goal is that I'm noticing my triggers and I'm giving myself more grace when patience runs thin. I'm trying to simplify everything that actually can be simplified, so I'm making fewer decisions, putting fewer expectations on myself, fewer shoulds, more about simple meals, simple routines, and simple days. And I notice the less mental load I have, well, that is a huge win for me. I'm trying to be present for the ordinary moments. Not every moment, just enough to notice the little giggles among my girls, the shared snacks amongst the toddlers, and the quiet cuddles with baby Laura. These are the memories that will always stick in my mind. Now, this is a big one for me. I'm trying to speak to myself the way that I would speak to another mum, with more kindness, encouragement, and understanding. Your inner voice matters far more than any parenting advice that we receive. And I'm trying to measure success by safety, love, and showing up each day. If everyone is fed and they're safe and they're loved at the end of the day, then we succeeded. Full stop. That's it. I'm letting go of comparison parenting. So I'm trying not to measure myself against social media or other parents. It's my children, my house, and my pace. And that is all enough. I'm trying my very best. It's not easy at times, but I'm trying to prioritise my sleep whenever it's possible. So even short naps throughout the day, or even going to bed like I did a little bit earlier last night, it all counts. Sleep isn't indulgent. It's a basic need. It's survival. So I try to do the best I can to get as much sleep just to give me as much energy as I need to get through each day. And the last thing that I'm trying to focus on is trying to embrace the mess as part of life. There's toys on the floor, food spills, the washing is piling up. But I'm trying to, hold on to the fact that these things don't define my parenting. And I'm trying to let go of control in small ways. And in turn, that frees up mental space for me. And I notice if I do try to improve in these little things, my experience of motherhood and children being outnumbered by 3 children in my house is a much more enjoyable experience for me. I'd love to ask you, I've talked a lot about myself on this podcast, but let's turn the microphone on you, the listener. I would love to know what your biggest challenge has been with multiples or other siblings, and how you manage that situation. Get in touch with me on Instagram, send me a DM or comment down below on the podcast episode post that I will put up for this episode. I would love to hear your stories. And equally with that, if there was one parenting hack that was life-changing for you, let me know and I will share it on the Instagram page. I love hearing from you. I love hearing your stories and I love hearing how you're getting on. So please do get in touch with me. If you're listening to this podcast episode and that you feel that you're outnumbered, you're overwhelmed, or that life at times can feel completely chaotic, please know you are not failing and you're not the only one feeling that way. I, for one, am one of those people. We are surviving and thriving in a way that only someone outnumbered by tiny children could possibly understand. And if I ever doubt myself, I just remember our 3 tiny bosses. They might be loud, but they are teaching me lessons in love, patience and joy that no number of adults could ever come close. Being outnumbered doesn't mean that we are failing. It means our life has witnesses. It means love has multiplied faster than our ability to manage it. It means the day didn't go according to plan, but it did go according to the truth. Thank you for listening today. If you've ever felt outnumbered by your little humans, share this episode. Tag a mum who needs to know that she's not alone. And remember, sometimes being outnumbered is the best title that you'll ever hold. Until next time, keep surviving, keep laughing, and loving through the chaos. That's it for this week's podcast episode. Thank you for your time today. I will join you next time for a chat on the Twins Mummy NI podcast. In the meantime, take care and remember there is always hope.